Meeting of the Township Committee of the Township of Morris.
This meeting is being recorded.
It's now being recorded, apparently. Wednesday, September 21st, 2022. The time is now 7:26 p.m. Madam Clerk, if we could please have a roll call.
Mr. Ravitz.
Here.
Mr. Mancuso.
Here.
Ms. Wilson.
Here.
Ms. Guariglia.
Here.
Mayor Gyorfy.
Here. If you could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for those here with us in person and those joining us on Zoom. For those on Zoom, we are starting late this evening because we were handling closed session items, and we'll be returning back to closed session after the public session. Up first on our agenda is passing the minutes from, where am I here? From July 20th, the regular meeting minutes. Is there a first and a second to pass the meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, we'll move on to proclamations. We have 3 proclamations this evening, but we'll be presenting one of them, and that will be recognizing September 2022 as Blood Cancer Awareness Month. And here with us this evening is a representative from the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And if you'd like to give a few words at the podium, if you'd wish, we'd be more than welcome. You'd be more than welcome to. Okay.
My name is Carrie Richardson. Behalf of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society in the New Jersey region, we are so grateful for Morris Township and proclaiming September as Blood Cancer Awareness Month to increase awareness of blood cancers and how LLS is able to help patients and their family, and how people are affected in your community and statewide and nationwide. So thank you so much.
Thank you for coming out, and I'll just give a brief overview from the proclamation that we'll be presenting to you, and just give a few, just to say a few of the paragraphs here. But whereas estimated over 1.5 million people in the U.S. Are either living with or in remission of leukemia, lymphoma, or myeloma. Every 180 seconds, someone in the U.S. is diagnosed with blood cancer. Blood cancer patients and their families need help more than ever, and the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society exists to find cures and ensures access to treatments and blood cancer for blood cancer patients. And because of the global COVID-19 pandemic, which has magnified the issues of blood cancer that patients face, beyond health concerns, including added distress, new financial worries, loneliness, and uncertainty. So on behalf of the Township of Morris, we encourage private efforts to enhance research and funding and education programs for saving lives, and we commend the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society for all of their hard work. So thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We do have an event coming up. On October 22nd, on Mount Temple Road in the ATX complex, we are hosting our Leukemia and Lymphoma Society Blood Night Walk, which is a celebration to honor, remember, and celebrate those who have been touched by cancer. So the festivities start around 4 o'clock. It's a really beautiful opening ceremony that we have that starts at 6:30, and it's one of the kind unique lantern ceremony that we host and have, where participants carry different colored lanterns and for the reasons that they're walking. So white lanterns are held by those who have either battled cancer and or going through a cancer journey. So there are survivor lanterns. Gold lanterns are held by those who have lost somebody to cancer, so they are our remembrance lanterns. And then our red lanterns are for supporters and those who want to see an end to cancer once and for all. And although we are a blood cancer organization, we are all cancer diagnoses are welcome to join us at the walk. And just to, like I said, to celebrate, honor, and remember all those who have been touched by cancer. So if you are able to join us on October 22nd, it's a Saturday, we would love to see you there.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for all of your work. Next on the agenda is our first public comment and inquiry. Normally, this is for agenda items only. I know we started late. I know we have some members of the public. I'm not sure if you're coming to comment on general items, but normally we have the first public comment on things that we're voting on or deliberating. So did either of you plan to comment on items? Okay, so if the governing body is okay, I think we just do general commentary in the beginning since we are tardy to starting this evening.
Sure.
Right now, I believe we have 5 members of the public who are joining us on Zoom, and we have about 5 members of the public here in person. So if you'd like to come up in person to the podium, please state your name and address for the record. Please note that comments are limited to 5 persons per speaker. If you have any questions they would like answered, your remaining time to speak will be yielded back. We'll also take comments from those on Zoom who can raise their digital hands. We will go back and forth between in-person and Zoom comments. So if you'd like to come up, the floor is yours. And thanks for coming.
I'm Lauren Miller. I live on 23 Fieldstone Drive. I have concerns about Streeter Pool, but before I discuss my concerns, I just want to make sure that this is the right body to discuss those concerns, because I know there's a pool committee. So is this appropriate?
Yeah, you can provide your comment. There is a swim pool committee made up of members of the governing body and the public, but as the governing body, we're happy to hear your concerns.
Okay, good.
And they meet in the pool committee meets in October next. They do quarterly meetings.
Okay,
So.
and are the meetings online, published online?
Yep, they're public and they should be hybrid. So I believe you can come in person or go join from your home.
Okay,
on the
good.
computer. Yep.
I will. I've been in the township for over 30 years and have belonged to Streeter pretty much most of that time. And I have to say it's a beautiful facility. I haven't gone to Ginty much. I live near Streeter. It is a beautifully maintained facility. The new pool is phenomenal. In the past 2 years, things have happened that have made the situation, in my opinion, dangerous. And it's to no fault of any of the staff. And I'll tell you why I say that. In the it started last year. There's a group of kids that are Frelinghuysen age children who last summer came to the pool on electric scooters and bikes en masse, usually around 1 o'clock. And they would come in. Sometimes they rode their scooters around the pool. So you can imagine how concerning that is. Management tried to stop them as best they could. The lifeguards honestly are doing the best they can, managing these children, as well as watching everybody else in the pool. So the other thing so last summer was the scooters floating around the pool and total disregard for lifeguards and the management of the pool. There's a part of the pool that's 0 depth. And there's a lot of little children that are in there, and they dive into that part. It's just, to me, very, very concerning and unsafe. It continued this summer. It's the same group of kids. They come in at the same time, and it's like havoc is wreaked. You can feel the change in the tone of the pool. Lifeguards are blowing whistles. The managers are trying to get the kids out or trying to deal with them. The kids are beyond fresh. I know that the kids have been thrown out a couple of times, but some parents have come back and given management a hard time. I know this summer the police were called. So to me, it ruins the experience. But more than that, and I've said it a couple of times, it's a safety issue. One person gets hurt, and it's awful. Also, that pool adds to the value of our homes. So and I know there's been discussions around town that people don't want to go to Streeter anymore because it's not safe. And that's a shame because it's a beautiful facility. And frankly, it's one of the beautiful things in this town that draws people in and keeps our home prices up. So I just offer a suggestion. That right now the age that children can come in without parents is 12. I recommend we upping that to either 15 or 16 because kids that age don't want to come to the pool. 12-year-olds, yeah, they want to come to the pool without their parents because it's cool. And I just really feel that it's a real safety concern and that it should be considered that the age be raised to 16. I think that's really the only thing that can be done because the staff and the management of the pool, they've tried everything. So.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming to let us know. It's the first I'm hearing of it. I will just say personally, like you, I've lived here my whole life. You said you were here for 30 years, and I had been I went to Streeter as a kid, rode my bike there down from Foster Fields area, and for a long time. And obviously what you described is not something that we want, and it's not an environment we want our kids going to, or families going to, or adults going to. So I'm sorry, Mr. Quinn, did you
Say I'm aware of a number of the issues that Ms. Miller spoke about.
Okay.
Some issues we have with this group of teenagers or young preteens that
Your mic may be off. Sorry. There you go.
that we had. So I would, if it's okay with you, I'd like to have my Parks and Recreation Director or my Recreation Supervisor reach out to you and discuss it with you a little bit further.
Sure, I would welcome that.
Because it is, we're well aware of what the issues there, and as you said, with the kids and the managers trying to corral them and being verbally abused.
It's impossible. It's awful.
Right.
My son used to go when he was 12, and if I ever heard a word from anybody that he did anything, that was done. And I just, it's not happening. And like I said, the facility is phenomenal. I liken it to Disney World, where something is out of place in Disney World, and then before you know it, it's not. And Streeter is that way, and I'm sure Ginty is as well. And the management is phenomenal. They're doing the best they can. And the lifeguard, there's an issue with the number of lifeguards there are. So, and these are young kids as well. So I think the only thing that as I see it, that can be controlled is the age where they can come in without parents.
Okay.
So, but thank you for
No,
listening.
thank you for coming out.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for coming in person. But yeah, we're doing hybrid meetings, so you can always join remotely as well if you wish. But thank you for making us aware of this. And Tim said Parks and Rec Director Bill Fulch will be in touch, and we'll see what we can do moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wishing to speak? Any online, please raise your hands on Zoom. Seeing none, is there a motion to close the first public comment period?
Moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next on the agenda are our ordinances for public hearing and final consideration. We have one this evening. Madam Clerk, if you'd please read the title of the ordinance into the record, and we will then open it to the public hearing.
Ordinance number 21-22, an ordinance of the Township Committee of the Township of Morris for redevelopment contracting pay-to-play reform.
We will take comments from in-person attendees first, then switch over to Zoom if there are any. Please raise your virtual hand on Zoom to indicate you'd like to speak if you wish to, or come up to the podium in person. Seeing none in person or on Zoom, is there a motion to close public comment? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Now may I have a motion to adopt the ordinance number 21-22?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion from the committee members on the ordinance? Just for members of the public, we did have a thorough discussion on this ordinance at last meeting, and I believe also the meeting before. The governing body has introduced a separate pay-to-play ordinance and is introducing this one. Essentially, we're just reforming the laws, the local laws about contributions for political contributions for those running for election in the township, as well as contributions to local parties. And essentially, this is a way to try to take money out of politics, take politics out of our hiring practices here in Morris Township. So I commend Mr. Ravitz for putting these forward. The ordinance we're voting on tonight deals with redevelopers, where we'll be restricting the ability of redevelopers from contributing money to political campaigns here in Morris Township above the $300 threshold. So this is, again, just like we did with our professionals. We don't want redevelopers coming in or developers coming in and padding the pockets of politicians to try to get more redevelopment here in Morris Township. We're restricting that. So I think it's a worthwhile endeavor. Other towns have done it, and we are following suit. So it's a good thing for us. Any other discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. Ravitz,
Absolutely, yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
in this morning's New York Times, one of the answers to the clues was pay to play.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's a yes.
Okay.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Ms. Guariglia?
Yes.
Mayor Gyorfy?
Yes. I, Mark Gyorfy, Mayor, declare ordinance number 21-22 approved and adopted, and direct the township clerk to publish proper notice thereof in the official newspaper. We'll now move on to our resolutions for this evening. We have 10 on tonight's agenda. May I have a motion to approve resolutions number 191-22 through 200-22 by one motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. May I now have a motion to approve resolutions numbers 191-22 through 200-22?
So moved. Second.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. Ravitz?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Ms. Guariglia?
Yes.
Mayor Gyorfy?
Yes. For our consent calendar, we have 2 items on the consent calendar this evening. May I please have a motion to approve the 2 items on the consent calendar?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Moving on to consideration of monthly reports. We have received reports from Finance, Fire, Joint Court, and Police for July 2022. We have received reports from the library and the tax collector for August 2022. May I please have a motion to approve the monthly reports?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Claims for payment. The total amount of bills and vouchers for this meeting is $11,081,458.05. We're also the tax collector for the school district, the library, and the county. May I have a motion, please, to approve the list of the bills and vouchers?
Move the payments. Second.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. Ravitz?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Ms. Guariglia?
Yes.
Mayor Gyorfy?
Yes. Next item is standing committee reports and commentary by the Township Committee. And I will go in reverse seniority order, if that's okay, for our first meeting in person. So Mrs. Guariglia, would you like to go?
Sure. I'll just give a couple of the reports on DPW. The annual overlay project begins September 23rd through next week. It begins with Blackwatch Trail, Deborah Drive, Homewood Drive, Jonathan Smith Road, Mountainside Drive. Resident hazardous materials drop-off is Saturday, September 24th from 9 to 2 at the Public Safety Academy, West Hanover Ave. If anybody here, I have a flyer for those of you, if anybody's here, and you want to take a look at that when you leave. Annual leaf collection begins Monday, October 17th in Sector 1. Periodic updates will be on the website as we move through the 3 sectors. We will be picking up leaves through December 10th. Please have them raked to the curb line and not put in the street. On the sewer utility, just a reminder that semi-annual payments for sewer fees are due October 1st. You do have a grace period until October 10th. Fire applied for a grant through the State of New Jersey Firefighter ARP grant program for machines to clean fire turnout gear. Anticipate learning if we will get that grant sometime in October. Congratulations to firefighter Kyle Meyer, who was sworn in earlier this evening, and firefighter Ed Duffy, who was appointed to a career firefighter this evening. Infrastructure, good to see the Common Station parking lot being used by more commuters, and we are replacing the boiler in the train station. Those are my reports. Do I do commentary now or later?
You can do it now.
I do it now?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to say that, especially I've been out around town and not meeting some new residents and talking to a lot of other Morris Township residents. And as we switch now from summer to fall, one of the things that I remembered on September 2nd at the US Open, Serena Williams played her last game at the US Open in New York City. She will always be the greatest of all time, not only for her tennis accomplishments, but also for the path she took and the challenges she faced as a rising athlete. At the end of her match, she said, "The success of every woman should be the inspiration to another. We should raise each other up. Make sure you're very courageous. Be strong, be extremely kind, and above all, be humble." So these words don't just apply to women, they apply to all of us. So take Serena's advice, find your courage as we head into the fall and winter, hopefully without everything that came along with the pandemic. Be strong, be kind, be humble, and continue to make our community a great place to live.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ravitz.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'll give my update on Parks and Rec. I'd like to thank Bill Folish and his team for a great summer of activities for children and adults of all ages. Our Parks and Rec department is one of the reasons why Morris Township is such a great place to live, work, and play. Just an update, quick update on the Collinsville Tucker Park field renovations. We're finalizing our mailer survey. The survey will be in both English and Spanish, and will cover area residents to solicit their input for the features they'd like to most to see and use. Morris Township Fall Program registration began on August 11th. Please visit the Parks and Rec website and sign up using your community pass for all the offerings that are available. Morris Township residents, as always, will have first priority. Pickleball has taken the nation by storm. Our new courts seem to be always crowded, and while it's great to see people enjoying exercising, it's creating a problem. Residents have reached out to let us know of crowded conditions, residents not being able to get court time, and some out-of-town residents being disrespectful. We've already started investigating possible solutions. The Parks and Rec Advisory Committee is working on changes to the court usage rules and will be meeting on 10/6 to review them for implementation as soon as it's feasible. Lastly, there are a number of township-wide volunteer and scout park project opportunities. It's a great way to get involved and make a difference. Inquire at the Park and Rec's website for a full list of projects. I'd also like to congratulate Kyle Meyer and Ed Duffy on their appointments to the Morris Township's Bravest, the fire department. So congratulations to them. And now I'll proceed with my commentary. Good evening, and thank you all for your participation in our local community government. National politics may get all the spotlight, but it's what we do here locally that has the biggest impact on the quality of life in our lives. And my commentary this week will be in the spirit of Constitution Week. Benjamin Franklin wrote of the final draft of the US Constitution, quote, "I confess that there are several parts of this Constitution which I do not at present approve, but I am not sure I shall ever approve them. For having lived long, I have experienced many instances of being obliged by better information or fuller consideration to change opinions, even on important subjects, which I once thought right, but found to be otherwise." To better understand the Constitution, one should recall what preceded it. During the Revolutionary War, the Second Continental Congress devised the Articles of Confederation. These articles gave power to the 13 states rather than a national government. It was more of a friendship pact than anything else. It gave each state the sovereignty, freedom, and independence, and every power, jurisdiction, and right which is not by this confederation expressly delegated to the United States in Congress assembled. Within a decade, those Articles of Confederation fell apart. They were imperfect. So, in 1786, leaders called for a reworking of the structure of government that we now live under today. It's entirely proper that it opens with, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union." This new Constitution established the federal government law as supreme over state laws. Today, some people consider the words of the Constitution to be exact and specific and not open to interpretation. Personally, I do not subscribe to that way of thinking, especially when it comes to the rights of citizens. I'm not a constitutional scholar, but I think our founding fathers felt it was still an imperfect document and wanted to leave it open to interpretation as society and life evolved. For instance, the Second Amendment talks of the right to keep and bear arms. It also talks of a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. I don't hear much talk about well-regulated militias. The Ninth Amendment states that certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. To me, this means that a right not specifically mentioned in the Constitution is still a right. The 14th Amendment, Section 3, states that no person shall hold any office, civil or military, who has engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the United States. It's something to keep in mind as we learn more about the events leading up to and including the January 6th coup attempt. And as always, I'll end my commentary with the following. Let's not marginalize the people who have less political and economic power as some of us might now enjoy. Rather, let's face up to and stand up to those who continue to profit from our division. Such profiteers are the source of the nation's problems. We have more in common than should ever divide us, but we have to talk with and not at each other. Amplifying misinformation and hateful rhetoric plays right into the hands of America's enemies. Lastly, let's remember that as you go about your business each and every day, just to be a good person. Be kind to all. Kindness goes a long, long way. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Ravitz. Since we're doing seniority order, I'll go next, followed by Deputy Mayor Wilson and Mr. Mancuso. That doesn't mean I can't comment afterwards if something's said. No. For standing committee reports, for the Communications Standing Committee, I want to follow up on something and clarify something that we've been talking about for a few months, which is our annual summer newsletter. We've been widely anticipating this for a while, and unfortunately, after we've been doing investigating, thinking where the heck is the newsletter that was mailed out in the beginning of August, we are working with Congresswoman Cheryl's office and the post office to see where the heck it went. The post office has lost our mailing of 8,000 pieces of mail. And at this point, the mailer is outdated, and which is very unfortunate for us. I personally, when I was working on the Hill, would deal with postal service issues for the congressman I worked for. And I just have to say there's no excuse for losing 8,000 pieces of mail of government communications. So at this point, we actually, because we're getting close to election time, we are trying to stop the mailing because we'd be in breach of the 60-day blackout period before elections. For those who don't know, before an election, you can't be putting out government mailers because they could be misconstrued as political. And we don't want to be putting political mailers out with taxpayer dollars. So we're doing everything we can. Unfortunately, we don't know if it will show up. You may get it tomorrow, and it's probably going to be outdated, and we're not too happy about it. So I just want to let the public know that we are working with the post office and Congresswoman Cheryl's office, which we're always appreciative of her support to try to figure this out. It had some important information. We'll probably put it up on the website and get rid of the stuff that's already happened. Next, for communications for IT. As you can tell, we're here in person. We're doing hybrid. We have all new equipment here in the meeting room as of a few weeks ago. So for those of the public, you're the first ones seeing the screens and hearing the new microphones and seeing the new cameras. We actually have a control room now where we have staff actually managing the meeting to make sure it goes smoothly. After COVID, we know we would have some hiccups, not only in our meetings, but planning board meetings and board of adjustment meetings and other things. So we now have state-of-the-art technology, not only for ourselves to use, but for our employees to use during the day for their day jobs, including the conference room back. So that money is being well spent. That is federal money given to us from the American Rescue Plan, specifically for IT improvements for local governments. For my legislation standing committee report, I know I bring it up often again, but for the 21-day notice bill that we had introduced in the state Senate, which would expand the notice requirements for developers and anyone wishing to go before the planning board and Board of Adjustment, they would require them to give 21-day notices before their hearings as opposed to 10. We now have a co-sponsor in the Assembly, so we now have 2 versions of the bill with bipartisan sponsorships in both the State Senate and the State Assembly. So Mr. Ravitz and I will be working soon to start doing outreach to local or area towns to urge their lawmakers to co-sponsor this legislation in Trenton so that we can provide some more clarity and transparency for our residents as it relates to land use. And we are able to get to this point thanks to Deputy Mayor Wilson, who introduced and started the initiative a few years ago. So thank you for that. For general commentary, I just wanted to thank the American Legion for everything they've done. Earlier this evening, we had a great service in front for our police and firefighters, particularly promotions and swearing-ins, but we also recognize our veterans in the fire department, and the American Legion has always done so much for not only our town, but for our veterans. And we have to do our part to support them and to support their outreach efforts so they can reach more and more veterans. So they're here to help us, we're here to help them, and we appreciate their continuing partnership. And then lastly, I would be remiss, it is September 21st, which means Hillside's Oktoberfest is fast approaching. This is my plug for my fire company. We have our Oktoberfest at Hillside Hose Company Saturday, October 1st from 2 to 8 p.m. And it seems that the idea is catching on. Imitation is the highest form of flattery. I think there's like 5 other Oktoberfests going on that day. So make sure you come to the original one on Western Avenue from 2 to 8. And with that, I will turn it over to Deputy Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. And speaking from my position of seniority, I can't tell you how much I appreciate what a huge step forward it is to have this new equipment. I remember the old days when the equipment consisted of a 3-inch video camera and virtually no screens. So I'm really glad we're doing that. I have 2 standing committee reports, one on environment, one on transportation. On September 8th, the Environmental Commission held its energy aggregation presentation for the public. It was a very informative presentation. There was good participation and questions from the public. I believe there were about 27 people participating remotely. We also had a nice article on the front page of the Newsbee, which was very informative. And I encourage all members of the Township Committee to view the presentation and take a look at the article. Donna and I, as the 2 members of this standing committee, will be in touch with everybody prior to our next meeting regarding next steps. So also, I wanted to mention that the Fall Festival is coming up October 2nd. Our Environmental Commission gets a booth. They have a ton of hands-on interesting activities that they do. And so I encourage everyone to stop by and learn more about what they're doing. On transportation, there were a lot of topics that came up at last week's Transportation Advisory Committee. I'm going to highlight just one. One of TAC's most important purposes is to provide a forum for sharing information and ideas in response to residents' concerns. Last week's meeting provided a good example of how helpful that interaction can be. Several residents from Del Mar attended the meeting and shared their concerns about speeding and safety for their children in their neighborhood. Del Mar is in the budget and engineering queues for major road reconstruction in the next couple of years. Residents appreciated the explanation from that our professionals provided of how that funding and planning process works. This information provided assurance that their concerns are not forgotten. They are being addressed. The process just takes a while to move forward. Particularly helpful, I thought, was a discussion among these residents, TAC members, and our professionals about short-term solutions that could be implemented in the meantime, including providing a ghost car, installing advisory signs, and creating striping, which is doable and would likely have a significant effect on speeding. The residents themselves are going to do outreach with their neighbors to evaluate the extent of support in the neighborhood for striping. And I really commend them for their willingness to do that. I think it's a great mark of, healthy civic participation. The next morning after this meeting, a traffic officer joined the residents at the bus stop and discussed with them additional ideas for addressing their concerns. Overall, I thought this was a great example of the benefits of tax roll in providing the opportunity for positive, productive engagement and problem solving among our residents, our professionals, and the members of the committee. I also am the liaison for two other committees that I'd like to give a brief report on. One is our Senior Citizens Advisory Committee. They held their first in-person meeting on September 12th. For the first time ever, we had quite a few members of the public join, probably 8 to 10 people. We have two main subgroups that are part of this committee. One is the survey committee. They're looking at pulling together a survey to assess the needs of seniors in our community. They were prepared to recommend a one-page survey that the county has utilized in the past. And based on the feedback and the discussion that took place at the meeting, which there was a lot of, the survey committee decided to go back to the drawing board and make some revisions. And that means they probably will not get the survey distributed this year, but they will be in good shape, I think, to get it done at the beginning of next year. They also have a website committee. The goal is to create I call it a one-stop shop presence for all things seniors in our community. There's a ton of information that's available, and just sort of getting your arms around how to organize everything from the beginning is probably one of the hardest things. They are meeting tomorrow, and they're hoping to have an initial posting on the website prior to their next and final meeting of the year, which will be on November 28th. We also have Economic Development Advisory Committee, EDACT. EDACT is working to synthesize all the information they've gathered over the last year regarding visioning future possibilities for the Madison Avenue corridor. They met last night. They developed a plan for creating advisory recommendations and a strategic vision report by the end of this year. This is a big project. Their recommendations will reflect input from many different sources. I commend them for their work, and I look forward to receiving the results of their efforts, which they will be sharing with us. For my TC comments, I did want to comment a little bit on a couple of our proclamations. We did have, we had a proclamation for Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. Suicide is an enormous problem in our country. More than 48,000 people a year die by suicide. It's quite an incredible statistic. If you've ever known someone who's taken their own life, as I have, it's a terrible, devastating tragedy for everyone. Last Saturday, September 17th, in commemoration of Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, the 7th annual Out of the Darkness Walk was held in Chatham. A big purpose of this event is to raise awareness of the need to support people who are experiencing significant mental health concerns. The experience of hundreds of people gathering in support of this cause is an odd combination of sobering and uplifting. On the one hand, it's a humbling reminder of the number of people who've been touched by this issue. On the other, it speaks volumes about the compassion and goodwill that abound in our community. Special thanks to the officials from Chatham Borough, especially Mayor Thad Kobolars, for their role in organizing this very memorable and moving event. And per the reminders in our proclamation, I encourage all of us to be aware of the significant mental health needs so many people experience and how helpful it can be when communities come together to provide services and support in ways that are kind and caring and stigma-free. I like to comment on the resolution memorializing our hiring practices, which I believe was 194. I didn't write down the number. I would like to thank the Legislation Committee, Mr. Quinn and Mr. Cantor, for working together to create this resolution, which codifies our hiring practices. I like that this resolution sends a message to everyone, residents as well as potential applicants, that Morris Township follows a rigorous process when hiring decisions are made by this governing body. This resolution lets everyone know how our hiring process works, and it ensures that people are hired for the right reason because they're the most qualified applicant for the job. I'm really glad to have this resolution in place, and I thank you again for the work that went into creating it. I'd like to conclude by extending condolences to the family and friends of Sanjeev Sharma, who recently passed away after an extended illness. Sanjeev was a great guy. He leaves behind a very large family and many friends. I knew him for years. He was passionate about environmental issues and served as an associate member of our Environmental Commission for the last couple of years. So his passing is very sad. It's a loss to everyone who knew him, and my condolences to all. And with that, back to you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And before I turn it over to Mr. Mancuso, I just want to thank you for putting forward the resolution for hiring practices as a great suggestion after we did the pay-to-play ordinances. That's, to follow through with that. So thank you for the suggestion. Yes. Mr. Mancuso.
Thank you, sir.
Mhm.
Just 5 small items. It's a reiteration of last month's meeting, but sadly say goodbye to Tara Olivia Moore. She was in the short time she was on the board, she was a knowledgeable, intelligent addition to our meetings, but has been replaced by a peer, Donna Guariglia. I've spent some time with her. We've talked. She seems to be very, very knowledgeable, and she has Morris Township as her main thrust, her main thought process. Very happy, as I said before, that we are able to get that pay-to-play ordinance established. It makes a big difference in our thinkings. We had our certificate of annual audit, thanks to our Chief Financial Officer, Fran D'Angelo, and Administrator Tim Quinn, was done perfectly. Yesterday or last night, we started our budget meetings for the rest of for 2023, which is sort of hard to say. And we're doing everything we can to keep the tax rate as reasonable as possible, as we have over the past many years that I've been here. And in the same vein, Chairman Powell of the Fed raised interest rates 0.75 points today to combat inflation expectations. He thinks, so we think there'll be 1 or 2 more before they're done attempting to squeeze inflation out of the economy. Unfortunately, situations like this work where you may sometimes squeeze too much out. So you want to be very, very, very careful. So I think he's taking a word of advice from many people who understand really what's going on to just be moderate. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Mancuso. And thanks for bringing up the budget, which reminded me to mention something I neglected to. We passed a resolution tonight appealing to the state to rethink their decision to increase the health benefit premium costs for our employees. This is impacting municipal employees throughout the state. We're expecting over a $700,000 hit in terms of premium increases to cover our employees, which will have significant repercussions in our budget next year. We passed a resolution advocating that the state legislature work to have a reasonable premium increase, not one that's, was it 23%, Tim?
24%.
24% increase. I know Assemblywoman Dunn, who represents our district, has introduced legislation trying to combat this, and she reached out to us yesterday about it. But not to paint a bleak picture at this point, is, we were talking about in our budget meeting, is when will it end and when will we have a good budget year? We went through a pandemic. We went through incredible cost cost this year through inflation, the cost of asphalt went up 40%, which is huge when we're trying to repave roads and we can't afford to do so, or at least afford to do all the ones we want to. And now we have a backlog of that. So we'll see what we can do. We can only plead to the state to help us out. We'll go to the market too for insurance in the future to see if we can get lower rates from different providers. But we definitely have some challenges. So I appreciate Mr. Mancuso's years of expertise and Mr. Quinn and Fran as we start preparing for next year. And with that, we'll then move on to public comment and inquiry for all general commentary. There's currently 5 members of the public joining us on Zoom. We'll now open it up. We'll take in-person comments first. If we have any, then we'll switch over to Zoom. Please raise your virtual hand on Zoom if you'd like to speak. Please state your name and address for the record. Please note that comments are limited to 5 minutes per speaker. If you have any questions you'd like answers, your remaining time to speak will be yielded back. Is there a motion to open to public comment?
So moved.
Okay. I see Mr. O'Reilly's hand raised and Mrs. Memmer's hand raised. Does anyone in person want to comment? Seeing none, we'll go to Mr. O'Reilly.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Oh, good. Mr. Ravitz.
Mr. O'Reilly, can you please state your full name and address for the record, please?
James O'Reilly, 50 Independence Way.
Thank you.
Mr. Ravitz, you want persons who have engaged in rebellion to be removed from office, right?
The bill says Article 14, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution.
Now, my question is, should that require a court finding that the person has done so, or should Congress on its own cognizance decide that a person has done so?
I'll just, Mr. Ravitz,
I got to tell you, I'm out of my wheelhouse. I am not a constitutional scholar. That is for greater minds than mine to determine.
Mr. O'Reilly, if you'd like to comment, that is fine. But if you'd like to debate, I'd ask that we do that in a different venue.
No, I'm not debating. I'm asking.
Okay.
That's it. Bye.
Thank you. Mrs. Memmer.
Good evening, Marlene Memmer, 62 Independence Way.
Good evening. Thank you.
Excuse me?
I said good evening. Thank you for joining.
Okay. I just received the fall and winter 2022 recreation catalog. And I noted on page 4, the parks and the playground facilities and the various activities that are provided in each of these facilities. I also noted that a number of the fields' address are shown on page 5 of the catalog, but there are a number of other fields that are listed here with various activities that they provide that we do not have addresses in the catalog for. Is there a way we could get the addresses for some of the other facilities, or is there a reason why we do not put that in?
I got to look at the catalog. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we will look into it and get back to you.
The catalog is also online, so maybe it's there, but I will look at that, Mrs. Memmer.
Okay, it was in particular that there were a number of ones that listed the hiking trails that I've hiked on a lot of trails within the township and within Morris County, but a lot of these, the names of the fields were not recognizable to me. So I was just curious as to where they were. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Member. We'll get back to you. And I'm wondering if it's because if you put into, sometimes we don't have physical addresses, or do we have physical addresses for all the parks? I know sometimes you just have to, they'll just come up when you search online, but.
I'll take a look at it.
We'll
Most of them
into
do have an address that would be attached to it, or maybe
Okay, thank you
somewhere
very
else.
much. Thank you.
And Ms. Diane Holland.
I just wanted to recognize.
Ms. Holland, can you please just state your full name and address?
Yes, Diane Holland, 26 North Bridge Place. I just
Thank
want
you.
to recognize the new audiovisual equipment and commend the town for installing it. It has made the virtual meeting much better. The audio is enhanced, and I think it's money well spent.
Great, thank you. I'm glad to hear it. It's our first meeting, knock on wood, it's gone all right so far. So thank you. I'm glad it's working out for the people at home because those could have been disruptive. We all know we've had a lot of problems over the past few years. So thank you for that. Any other members of the public wishing to speak? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion to close the public portion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The time is now 8:16 p.m. We have to go to closed session though. We're not, so we're adjourning the regular session, regular meeting, and then we will go to close. Do we have to come back after close and open?
It's recommended, Mr. Cantor, that we give an approximate time that we'll be returning from closed.
Yeah, that's what's going, but there's gonna be no further business of the council after close. Is there any action taken coming out of closed?
No, sir, there will not be.
I mean, we could
Okay.
give an approximate time, but I think we'll just be closing the meeting.
Just close the meeting.
Okay, so it is now 8:17 p.m. May I have a motion to adjourn the
Well,
regular?
I'm sorry, Mayor. I meant to say that we should wait to adjourn until after close, but I mean, the approximate time will probably be about a half hour.
At most.
Okay, we will go into close for about 30 minutes and come back to close the meeting. Thank you everyone for joining us online tonight. We will not have any substantive measures coming after closed session. Thank you. Have a good night. We'll see you next month.
Thanks. Good night.
Thank you.